we're back, and hopefully our technical problems are resolved. In the quest for a better backdrop, unfortunately, we sacrificed the quality of the stream. But here we go again. Hello, Mike again. So we were talking about the technical difficulties of the Nintendo Switch, ironically. Um, and we were having technical problems of our own, which I guess you can kind of chalk up to being on Skype, which is going to happen. But anyway, so yeah, what are your thoughts on the whole Joy-Con thing? I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Okay, so the Joy-Con thing, a lot of people, what I've noticed when I was doing research for the article about the Joy-Con connection issue is that uh, basically some people have the problem like really bad, some people have it mildly, some people have to work very hard to produce it. So like Jason Schreier of Kotaku has it very bad.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, and I remember reading his reports. Whereas with me, I included this in our review. I really couldn't, like, even putting it behind my back, covering it with my hand, walking very far away. I can reproduce it, but it took me to like eat with it behind my back for that to work.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's very much a hardware lottery in terms of the actual issue. I do believe it's something to do with the hardware itself, but
That's the super
uh,
drag, if that's the case. Actually, one of our viewers, Francois Olivier, said, I had a wonky left Joy-Con, and after the first day, I scratched from the dock, so I returned my first Switch to Best Buy and bought a new one from Nintendo NYC on Saturday. Yeah, the getting a scratch from the dock is also kind of a problem, isn't it?
yeah, and that's also another one of those that it's sort of hit or miss because the issue is apparently that there's no nothing rubbing up against it. So uh, if your dock isn't perfectly straight, you're probably going to scratch. And I tweeted about this. It's uh, one of my enjoyable aesthetics is people modding their docks to prevent the issue. Some people have used electrical tape on the plastic rails on the inside.
Jeez.
Some have used of Velcro. Others have used like felt tape that you can get at a craft store. There's a number of different fixes, but the issue seems to be that since the dock, it's just plastic, isn't 100% straight. Some people, when they put their system in there, will just scratch the screen, and the screen is plastic. So,
Doesn't this scream hardware refresh to you in like a year and a half or something like that, where all of a sudden Nintendo's rolling out a much, much, much improved Switch with better battery life, and like it fixes all of the niggling problems with the Switch, and now you can like you can change out the memory card, and there's actual memory in the thing. Because I'm sorry,
uh,
the memory like size is ridiculously small.
yeah, it's. I think there will be a DS or new 3DS version or XL or whatever. I don't think it will be XL. I think it'll be smaller unit that will fix some of these issues. And to be honest, we're just the first wave. And I remember that I was looking for something else, and I found an original 3DS that I owned, and man, it's an ugly little thing
It
in
sure
comparison
is.
compared to the redesign.
So is the original DS. Oh my god, have you ever seen that thing? It's always the redesigns. Though Nintendo has traditionally not done redesigns with their regular consoles. The Wii and the Wii U, the Wii got like a different color and like a different like better controllers and stuff, but the actual fundamental hardware remained the same. They haven't been like Sony where they've been like putting out slim consoles and that kind of thing. Leighton Log was wondering if what kind of track record does Nintendo have with dealing with persistent hardware problems like these seen in the Joy-Con now? Actually, to be honest, like Nintendo has not really had these kinds of persistent hardware problems, to my knowledge, through their years. I mean, it's a little different. People were throwing their Wii remotes through TVs, and they responded by putting a strap on it. Um, I think you have to go all the way back to the original Famicom when there was a problem with the controller and they did a mass recall, which, like a lot of people say, probably defined Nintendo's reputation for quality, and was kind of a ballsy move on the part of Nintendo itself, which was instigated by their president, who is known for that kind of thing. He is obviously long gone, so it's really hard to get a read on how Nintendo will respond to these
It's going to
sorts of
handle
things.
this.
Hmm?
Yeah. It is going to be hard to figure out how Nintendo will handle this specific issue moving forward because Kimishima is a different kind of president than actually is probably closer to Yamauchi than uh, in terms of management style. Um, but I like if they have to fix this through some sort of hardware recall, uh, I imagine Nintendo is going to hold that off as long as possible. Um,
That would be really bad if they had to do something like that, or like a warranty
the
thing, like the Red Ring of Death.
Yeah, the smart fix is to release left Joy Cons with actual D pads because
Ooh.
everyone will want to pick that up anyways, and then that'll fix the problem
Oh,
because you'll have a Joy-Con.
oh, and you're right, Gogo Rider. It was like a chip or something. I thought it was a controller, but I could be wrong. Francois Olivier says he applied a screen protector as I was taking my second switch out of the packaging. So maybe that's something you definitely want to do when you're putting into the dock. So enough about the Switch itself. Let's talk a little bit about Zelda. Um, so you finished it, Mike, and you gave a
Yes,
perfect score.
I did.
Um, I am about. Well, let's see. I just made it to well, basically the second area, like the second major area, I suppose, which is where the game really opens up, which is funny to say because the first area is really big. It's almost
The Grand Plateau,
intimidating.
yeah.
Yeah, it's almost intimidating how big that map is. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and the Grand Plateau, you can probably bust a good 3 to 5 hours into the Grand Plateau, but that's still looking at the map. I think it was like 1% of the overall map. Like it's really small. It's a big game. I beat it, but there's. I was explaining to the rest of the folks who are everyone else is currently playing it now. Um, Probably Critical Path is of the 10 regions, like 5 or 6 of them. And there are 4 regions that are in the game that you don't necessarily need to explore, and I've only sort of explored them. So there's like a lot
Hmm.
of game in Zelda Breath of the Wild.
And
A lot of game.
it's interesting. People have been going, well, the dungeons in this game aren't as memorable, but the thing that kind of strikes me is that maybe the whole game is a dungeon in the respect that there's just so much to explore and so much to do, and it doesn't feel like. I mean, there's always been a lot to do in the Zelda overworld, but it's always felt really discreet and different. Where in Breath of the Wild, like there's so many interesting puzzles and things to kind of solve and that sort of thing. Like the overworld isn't about traversing to the next place; it's kind of about exploration. It's about figuring out how to cross that river or climb that cliff or whatever. And in that respect, I find it every bit as engaging as your traditional Zelda dungeon.
Yeah, and I wrote that it'll be decisive because there are dungeons that are like full on dungeons, but same. They have interesting mechanics, but they look the same. And then there are the shrines, which sort of take the place of some of these extra puzzles, like it used to be that a Zelda dungeon would be this long, winding chain of puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the dungeons are sort of like that, but they're not as memorable. But that's partially because the effort was moved out into making the world itself.
Mm-hmm.
Each region pretty visually distinct, and there's a lot to find out there. And the shrines sort of give you little hits of puzzles here and there, and then there's the enemies, and there's secrets to find. Uh, so yeah, I could agree that the whole place is a dungeon,
Yeah,
all of Hyrule.
I like that the shrines are so discreet. I like how short they are. Because, okay, look, I love me some Zelda. I love playing Zelda, but I've and like the temples can often like dungeons can often feel really like satisfying and really intense and can be a lot of fun to play, especially like I think Link Between Worlds like had some of the best dungeons I've played in the series. Like they were just so satisfying and so fun to play through.
I love Link Between Worlds.
But I think the flip side of that is that they can get a little exhausting. That was like definitely the case in Skyward Sword for me, where like these dungeons were so vast that after a while I was just like, oh god, enough already. I just want to be done with this, right? Like there's so much to going into like finally getting to the boss, and like at some point I'm just going, I just want to get to the boss. I really just want to be done with this so I can keep advancing through the game. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, I'm like really much more taking it at my own pace, right? I almost feel like
Mhm.
it almost makes me wonder if a traditional 3D Zelda game would have worked as well on the 3D on the Switch gamepad.
I mean, it might have, um, but I do definitely get that feeling because I was while I was reviewing it, I was up and I did, uh, and see the dungeons don't even have names, sort of, but not like. Remember, I was doing one dungeon and it ended up rolling to about. I think I started the dungeon at 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. rolled around and I was
Ooh,
still like in the dungeon.
damn, that's intense.
Not because it was, I'd say, particularly hard or the dungeon was actually that long, but I had just completely missed a key mechanic of the dungeon. And so I was flying blind and could not move forward because I had just missed the key mechanic, which was back at the very beginning of the dungeon. So,
Whoops. Yeah, you kind of need that, don't you?
yeah, so I was like sitting there and I was like, okay, doing that thing where you just sort of like poke everything, and I was throwing stuff around. I'm like, maybe this. So yeah, that took a while, but
That's so stressful when you're
times
reviewing a game, by the
definitely
way.
it's very stressful. As sort of the inside look into reviewing, when you get stuck when you're reviewing a game,
You
there's
want
no
to kill
guide.
everybody.
There's no guide. There's no like. There's people to talk to, but there's no guarantee that you're not ahead of them.
Hmm.
And 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 you don't even really know what other outlets has the game, so you're just stuck and there's no way to move forward and the deadline is coming.
Yep.
So it's the worst thing.
There's nothing
um
quite like being up until 3 in the morning, like banging your head against a particular puzzle and going, I have made no progress in like 5 hours. I am
yeah,
so tired. I have to go to bed. I have to write tomorrow, and I have made no progress. So I did not envy you in that moment, Mike.
there's a shrine that was like that too, and the shrines are aimed more towards, definitely towards portable play. Like the shrines are like, here's 10 minutes, here's 15 minutes. There are occasionally ones that are longer than that. But for the most part, it's like here's 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You go to a shrine, you solve a puzzle, and you leave. Um, I think I only got stymied like for 30 minutes on one shrine, and that's because I was overthinking. I was just completely overthinking what the puzzle solution was supposed to be. So that was my fault. Um,
By the way, if you're just joining us now, welcome. We had about 20 minutes of connectivity and technical hell, but we are seem to be over that now, and we're doing okay. I'm Kat Bailey, and with me is Mike Williams, and we are talking about Zelda Breath of the Wild at the moment. If you have any comments or if you have any questions, share them in the chat. I will totally read them throughout the stream. So yeah, like I wish I were further to be honest, but like this is a kind of game where you spend a lot of time wandering even despite yourself.
mhm.
I'm definitely the kind of gal who likes to critical path a game, but I don't really feel like that's an option a lot of the time. You're like spent a lot of time just like traversing this vast, empty, beautiful landscape. And so as a result, it's taken me a little bit, but I'm into the second area now, and the game is starting to open up quite a bit more. I'm getting like much better weapons now. I have a proper outfit. I've discovered that you can tame horses, which is rad. I
Okay.
enjoy taming the horses and riding around on them, though I have had bad luck with the horses so far. One I got set
You
on
keep losing your
fire.
horses.
Yes, one got set on fire by one of the like machines, and another one I got stuck on a mountain. And I've not found a stable yet, so I'm really Red Dead Redemptioning these poor horses. Like it's not been good,
Oh, wow. I totally didn't think about that when we were talking
right?
earlier. You haven't found a stable at all.
Nope, not
So
at all. I've
so
been
those
looking everywhere.
so those horses, yeah, no, those horses are gone. We were telling you you could go to the stable and get those horses back.
Nope, nope,
No.
nope, 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 nope.
No. You can get them back once you've taken them to a stable.
Yeah.
Uh, but
R.I.P. Laser Horse. You're on fire now forever.
yeah, no, you have killed. And I mean, that's part of this Zelda, in contrast to Skyward Sword, which was a game that sort of bored me. Uh,
I think it bored a lot of
I,
people at the end of the day. Though I don't want to make this a like slag on Skyward Sword. It really is a diametric opposite of that game.
yeah,
Skyward Sword is so deliberate in the way that it is so story heavy. It is so like the dungeons are really freaking elaborate. And by comparison, this game it really respects your intelligence. It is much more content to let you kind of do your thing. It does not take forever to clear its throat, kind of. Uh,
right.
yeah, like I really appreciate that. To be perfectly honest, it's a really like huge breath of fresh air, if you don't mind me saying.
It sort of toes the line between a game that does not hold your hand and a game that doesn't explain anything. Because as I said in the review, there are which you may never engage with in Breath of the Wild. I just found out today that there is a house that you can purchase and repair in one of the villages in the game.
What? You can
I
repair a
totally,
house?
yes,
Dude, I want a house.
yeah, but I didn't know that because I never went there. I was a man on a mission. I was a man climbing mountains with my climbing bandana and just never went to that bit of the town. And it's a very free-form game in that you don't necessarily uh, need certain mechanics to move forward. And people will uh, clutch solutions all the time. Like I was just reading on online, someone was talking about the first mountain in the Grand Plateau. It's cold, and Link doesn't have any way to handle the cold. And the idea that they want you to do is cook a recipe, and and
Get the
the
outfit.
recipe will give you cold resistance. And then when you go to the top, you'll get an outlet, or you can figure out a recipe and you'll get the outfit, or I used a torch pretty much my entire way up.
Oh, you can use a
Couldn't fight
torch.
anything, but I never.
Yeah.
Yes, a torch will keep you warm. But
Oh.
someone was talking about they couldn't. They had walked their way up, but they couldn't get down, and I guess they never went to the peak to get their outfit. So what they did was they lit a barrel on fire and then pushed the barrel down the mountain and then shield surfed after it
Nice.
to remain in the heat. I mean, they eventually died because shield surfing uh, affects your shield's durability, and eventually your shield will break,
Hmm.
at which point you fall off, and that's when they died.
Hmm.
Uh, but Zelda allows, Breath of the Wild allows for a lot more of those interesting solutions.
Kind of brute
Uh,
forcing it.
right, but I also feel that that sort of goes in the other direction, where you're never quite sure if you're doing something right, and you're never quite sure in possession of all the information you need.
Yeah, I did not get the warm doublet for quite a while actually. I got the spicy, like I just made like a spicy dish. Like it was like I think it was like I don't know. I think I combined peppers and something else. Oh, probably mushrooms, and that made like a dish that would give me 3 minutes of warmth a piece. And I had like like 8 of those, so I was able to just basically get through like with no problem whatsoever. And it wasn't until I went to our guides actually on the site and I was like, oh, you can get a warm doublet. Oh, that's cool, because I was still wearing the old shirt.
Yeah,
um and so I was like, oh no, oh, that's how I got it. Okay, I look much better now. Excellent.
yeah. And see, if you had never read if you had never read our guides, you would have never known about that. Like the
Yeah,
warm doublet just wouldn't exist for you.
exactly. I would never have known to go back to the old man's hut. Somebody's asking, the food gives you stat boosts like Snake Eater or Yakuza? Yeah, they can give you temporary like defensive boosts and that kind of thing. And they also boost your resistance to cold. So
Yep.
they can be
Cold
very useful.
resistance, heat resistance,
Stealth
electricity.
resistance, because
Uh,
there's actually a sneaking mechanic in this game.
yeah, stealth, faster climbing speed,
Mm,
faster movement speed, attack up, defense up,
stamina.
uh, and stamina. And then yes, there's also an extra hearts. Like it'll give you extra hearts on top of what you already have temporarily, like until they're gone, or extra stamina. Uh, it's actually one of the bigger systems of the game and one of the more core systems that you probably won't get through the game without engaging to a significant degree.
What do you think of the towers?
I mean, I like the tower. I like a lot of people, and there will be a forthcoming article on this. Talk about the Ubi towers. I mean, there's a specific reason for this in open world gaming, but um, in Zelda, when you go to the top of a tower, and only 10 of them, is almost like its own mini puzzle. The early ones are pretty easy to scale. The later ones you sort of have to figure out. Like one is covered by enemies. Another
Hmm.
one has those laser guardians around it.
Yeah.
Another one you need a certain amount of stamina to get on.
Yeah, there's one with spikes, and you
Yeah,
have to kind of like circle around it to get to the top, but you have to do that without running out of stamina. It's kind of tricky. So they're like puzzles unto
correct.
themselves.
Right. And then once you get to the top, they show you the topographical map of that region, but they don't like give you everything,
No.
which is part of the issue I think that a lot of people have had with the Ubisoft Tower,
Yeah.
which is not necessarily like the mechanic itself. It's how the mechanic is executed, and in Creed and some other games, you climb the tower, you get to the top of the tower, it shows you the region, and then it says, "Here's everything in the region that you can do." Whereas Zelda's just like, "Well, there's the region. Uh, enjoy. Use your scope. See if you can find any shrines or interesting stuff you want to go to, and do your walking. Latin La, Latonolog? Laton,
Latonolog. Late
that's what
no
I'm going.
late no
Uh,
log.
would you say it's the Dark Souls of Zelda?
I
Yes,
feel like I'm being trolled with this question, by the way.
if only, if only because there is one boss that I keep waiting for everyone to get to that is 100% straight up a Dark Souls boss.
Oh man, that's exciting and terrifying. Given that, well, I mean, you can't call people in to help you with this game. So if
No,
that's the case, oh holy crap! And this game's hard anyway, right? Like Nadia posted a thing on the site, basically being like, "So yeah, I'm kind of getting my ass kicked by this game," and it's true. This is a Zelda game where I ran to like this skull and I was fighting some of the level like the basic enemies and a blue version of them came out and killed me in one hit. And I was like,
uh,
oh. And then there was also another time that I got set on fire by a laser. I've fallen many times. I feel like I've died in this Zelda game more than I've died in like practically any Zelda game ever already.
yeah, and it'll throw part of the sort of organic nature of it is it'll sometimes throw combinations of enemies that are not beneficial to you. Like later towards the game, I was trying to kill one of the guards, and then there was a bokoblin, two of them on horses with arrows, which completely threw me off. So I'm like focusing on the guardian. I'm like, all right, I'm about to take this down. I get hit by an arrow. Now I'm not on my horse anymore. So I'm already screwed. Then the guardian's got laser on me. Now I'm dead
Mm
because of the laser.
hmm. Mm hmm.
I ended up, and you'll run into later enemies that will one shot you or nearly one shot you. Sometimes you'll go towards an area, you'll explore it, and then you'll run into an enemy on accident. Uh, and then, yeah, like I said, there is a at least two bosses that will like literally require a certain amount of skill and dexterity to defeat, which is rare for Zelda, I think.
So we're getting more people into the stream. Welcome. We're talking about Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild at the moment, and talking about its comparisons to Dark Souls, specifically how hard it is. If you have a comment that you want to read on the stream, you should put them in the conversation, which is continuing in the comments. And by the way, if you are enjoying this stream, do us a favor and like it, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We try to update it as much as humanly possible with gameplay and
Hi,
commentary and
Brian.
all that good stuff. Oh, hey, it's Brian Folk. Like USgamer comments legend periodically pops up. So yeah, there's some discussion about from Latonolog. No, but seriously, there seems to be some similarities with the sense of a living, breathing world, all interconnected, plus stamina and inventory management. Plus, people say the enemies hit hard.
And they do. They will hit, especially later on. Have two-handed claymores or some of the enemies with bows and arrows. They will hit very hard, and I feel like it's tuned to not one-shot you, but to leave you with a quarter
Really
of a
hurt.
heart,
Yeah.
just a quarter of a heart. So it's like you can survive, but you screwed up. You know that.
The flip side of this is that you feel like a total badass in this one in a way that you don't even necessarily feel like in other Zeldas because, I mean, you're like, you can see all of the stuff that you're toting on your back, right? And so you got like tons of gear on
Yes.
you. You got like your bow and your arrow and your shield and your like all of your equipment. And you can do things like you can like my one of my favorite things in the early going is to like summon a bomb because you can summon bombs in this one and throw it into a group of enemies that have exploding barrels around them and detonate them and send them flying everywhere and they're explosions and you're like yeah, and then you break out your bow and you start going to town. Oh my god, the way that they have the combat going, it's almost like Far Cry. It's actually kind of insane, like how you can like go in and just start wreaking havoc. I love it.
Yeah. No, it reminds me a lot of Far Cry 2, and Zelda producer Eiji Aonuma said he played the Far Cry series, Witcher 3, and a couple of other open world games to sort of research this game.
Not surprising.
Uh, and, it looks like they've taken the right ideas from those games. It's a very, I was talking to someone else, a Blizzard style of polish. Whereas there's nothing wrong with taking other people's good ideas
Oh,
and
absolutely not.
polishing them up
Improving
and
them.
making them great. So, yeah.
But in response to the earlier question, this is not the Dark Souls of the Zelda series. Zelda 1 is the Dark Souls of the Zelda series. A huge, formless, open game where you have no clear direction, you're encouraged to explore, and it's extremely combat heavy and extremely hard. And also, yeah,
Yeah.
so it's the
And
original
people had
Zelda.
pointed out previously that Dark Souls was essentially a 3D version of Zelda with a completely different aesthetic,
Mm.
uh,
And
which
robust online play.
yeah, which is a little minimalistic, but sure, yeah, I
Somebody was
with that.
somebody was comparing this to Monster Hunter. I can definitely see the similarities there as well, especially in the way that you have to kill animals for meat, which, by the way, I cannot bring myself to do most of the time. It
You'll
is.
get over that.
Oh my.
Sometimes later on, you'll need tons of food. You will start murdering. I will slaughter entire groups of animals.
There will be goats, and I'll be like, oh, poor goat, I don't want to kill you. And then it'll run and charge me, and I'll be like, screw you, goat, you die now. And then the goat is dead.
Yeah,
But yeah, so there was that aspect. But another aspect is when you're, for example, going into the cold areas we were discussing, you essentially like put on a potion or eat some food that will like give you some resistance, which is very Monster Huntery, I should
yep,
say. The difference is that the world is much more open, as opposed to having a lot of discrete zones and that kind of thing, and obviously it's multiplayer focused.
yeah. I'd actually, it'd be interesting to see some of those ideas that sort of work here end up back in Monster Hunter. Um, Brian, yeah, you can definitely do a vegetarian run
Oh
in this.
man.
I
What
mean, I
about a
killed a lot
naked
of.
vegetarian run?
Uh, I
Apparently,
mean,
people are already doing naked
someone could
runs.
do it. Someone can
People
do it.
people are already doing
Uh,
naked runs, and and apparently, like people will comment on you if you're like naked. Like they'll be like, "Oh my."
yeah, no. If you have the dodging skill and the timing, you don't necessarily need armor in this game.
Nope.
Uh,
People do all kinds of crazy things. I was just watching a stream today where somebody beat the Abyss Watchers from Dark Souls 3 with what appears to be
the
bongo
DK
drums.
bongos. They
The
were the Donkey Kong
Yeah,
Country bongo drums.
they totally did it. I mean, it's insane what people do on the internet now. It's completely ruined everything. I can't feel good at games anymore.
Yeah,
People are like, get good. I'm like, that
yeah. No,
guy beat Dark Souls 3 with bongo drums, for God's sake.
I think there was one guy, and Nintendo, uh, to their credit, are getting a lot better about dealing with this digital future. And he's a speedrunner, and they gave him Breath of the Wild way ahead of time.
Hmm.
And they were like, "Don't tell anyone about the very end of the game, but do what you can to speedrun it." And I think he's gotten it to like 2 hours and 20 minutes or something like that. He
Damn.
hasn't beaten it, but rather short because you can go straight once you get off the Grand Plateau. You can go straight towards the final uh, dungeon area of the game. Uh,
Yeah,
it's
and
just
there's
a
some stuff
matter
that
of
you can do there if you just go straight there, which is kind of rad.
yes, which
Yeah.
I'll write about that
Spoiler alert.
because as I beat the game and then I created a new another user account because Switch save games are saved on the system, but they're saved per user account. Um, so then I tried to see what would happen if I went straight towards Hyrule Castle, uh, and it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty. Looked a
Uh,
challenge because I'm not that guy.
I'm reminded that somebody beat the Dreamcast Soul Calibur with the fishing rod from Bass Fishing or whatever. Amazing.
No, no, folks. I
Devin,
mean,
yeah, sorry, what?
someone has to be that, especially when games done quick is on. But I'm certainly not that guy. Uh,
Devin Edwards says it seems to be a good look for a wide range of group. Both my kids 7 and 11 are loving it. I've only played for 45 minutes, but I like it better than I thought I would. Yeah, no, I definitely like it better than I thought I would as well. It's really interesting. I bet Nintendo's totally making a killing on people buying multiple copies of this game because we are a two Breath of the Wild household. On Saturday, I actually literally drove around to different Best Buys looking for a copy of the Wii U version so that my girlfriend could play the Wii U version and I could play the Switch version. And so when she's playing in the living room, I've got my Switch in like the office or something, playing on the handheld version. And there have been many, many pictures on Twitter of people being like, "Yep, somebody's on the TV and I'm on my Switch."
yeah, I think Katie did the same thing. I want
Yes.
to.
Well, she's a two Switch household. Her boyfriend bought a Switch and she bought a Switch, so her boyfriend's been on the TV and she's been on the handheld.
Handheld, yeah, and I have that are doing the two switch household thing, uh, which is interesting because I was always trying to figure out if people were going to treat it as a portable or as a home console. Because in a
Mm.
household, if it's a home console, you buy one, and that's it for the most part. But a portable, you tend to get one for every person, and it sounds like people are treating the Switch more like a portable.
And Nintendo's like rubbing their hands together, going, "Yes, more, more." It's like buying movie tickets, right? Like, it's not that everybody is going to see the movie; it's that a bunch of nerds are going to go see it 10 times. But Brian Folks saying, "I really like hearing that Zelda's borrowed some Dark Souls difficulty. Zelda's been much too easy for a while." I would actually flip that around. One of the reasons that my girlfriend mostly plays Zelda to the exclusion of anything else is that she likes the puzzles versus the actual combat. She doesn't really like necessarily like extremely difficult fighting and that kind of thing. She would much rather solve puzzles, and she really loves the traversal puzzles in the dungeons in Zelda. And if she was saying that if she had her way, she would take the combat out entirely. And I don't think she's alone, to be perfectly honest. So I'm really curious to see if she's going to get like just extremely frustrated with Breath of the Wild at the end of the day.
I think a lot of it is going to be fine when they're just exploring the world. But there are uh, sort of the named bosses who a lot of the large named world bosses are like battles of attrition. And when you add weapon durability into that, because every weapon in this game is made of glass,
Yeah.
uh, it can lead you um, to not actually have any weapons. Like you'll end up finding that you'll be like, damn, I just don't have another weapon
Oh
available.
no.
Like I
Oh
have to
god.
leave this. And then there are some bosses that will, uh, two of them in their second phases will test people. Like they will be like, oh, I was doing fine. There's some hard stuff. Oh, on here. Uh, which is why I'm waiting to see when people run into those guys.
So T minus
Uh,
1 week until I write the weapon durability is bullshit article. Good to know.
you you will have some moments where you'll be like, oh, I just literally do not have another weapon. There there are combat focused shrines. The major test of strength ones will suck of your weapons. Bosses will suck away all your weapons, and then some of the named world bosses. Uh, uh, as I explained it earlier, someone was like, "How bad is the weapon durability?" I was like, "Well, when I was reviewing Dark Souls 2: Scholar of the First Sin, I was playing it, and I didn't know about the weapon durability bug, wherein they had tied durability to the game's frame rate. So my weapons were faster than a normal Dark Souls player, but since I hadn't played Dark Souls 2 before, I just assumed that that speed was normal. And Zelda runs at that speed of weapon durability like all the time.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, your weapons break real quick. Luckily, to this point, I've been able to just find so many of them that it's been no
yeah.
problem. But weapon durability is always bullshit because it's like I don't know. It just kind of forces a grind. And plus, it makes you really nervous about using weapons that you would ordinarily feel good about using.
Right.
I don't like it as a mechanic.
You'll eventually have stratas of weapons where you'll have the great weapons that you've picked up that you don't want to use because you want to save those for a rainy day or a hard boss fight, but they're still taking up space in your inventory. And then you have a second tier of weapons like whatever comes, whatever I find,
Yep.
I will use this to beat other people to death until it shatters.
Yeah, like
So,
clubs. I love that there are halberds in this game too, by the way. All right. So we're running out of time, but last question. So you said that when you were like scoring this, you said that you were on the edge between a 4.5 and a 5. At the end of the day, like what do you think might have pushed this down to a 4.5 for you?
uh, like I said, it's there were a couple of issues. Weapon durability, the mechanic, I like it to a point, but I think there needs to be some way to repair um, the sort of lack
Mm,
of say the classic is can be off-putting most of the time. Like when I started, it bothered me a lot more than it did by the end of the game. I feel the soundtrack is a huge misstep. I understand why they did it that way, but for the most part, it's pretty subtle and out of the way, which means you miss some of those great Zelda themes.
hmm.
Um, and if you listen to the people have posted the actual soundtrack on the thing, there are actually like some really good songs in the game. They're just not really present in any meaningful way when you're playing the game. Like they're sort of in way, way in the background because the game wants you to be in the world, not listening to the music until you're in battle. Then you hear that battle theme, and the battle theme's just okay.
All right.
Mm.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining me to talk about Breath of the Wild and the Nintendo Switch. If people want to know more, they should check out the website. They should check out your review of the Switch. They should check out your review of Breath of the Wild, and they should check out our ongoing coverage.
And there's
Um,
more reviews coming.
yep,
There's more reviews
so
coming.
many
I
more
got
reviews. Mike has been really
Bomberman.
busy. Yep.
I got Just Dance. I got Snipper Clips. Snipper.
Woohoo! And if you want more Breath of the Wild coverage discussion, Nadia is playing it, I am playing it, and we will be talking about it on Axe of the Blood God, our official RPG podcast, on Friday. So keep an eye out for that on our Zelda Mega Review Pod. So until then, I've been Kat Bailey, and for Mike and myself, thanks so much. Please remember to like this video and to subscribe to our channel, and keep checking back. If you enjoyed this live stream, leave us a nice note because we always like hearing from you. Until then, I will see you later. Have a good afternoon and enjoy Zelda. Laters.